Donald Trump has a warning.
Donald Trump has reportedly warned Russia's President Vladimir Putin.
This is a monster move.
The most consequential election in the last 129 years.
Donald Trump has warned BRICS member countries over attempts to undercut the US dollar.
That any attempt to replace using the US dollar means that your country could face severe economic consequences like a 100% tariff on exports to the US. Okay, so imagine waking up tomorrow and finding out that the US dollar, the currency you've trusted your whole life, suddenly isn't the world's go-to currency anymore. Sounds crazy, but that's exactly what could happen if the BRICS nations, Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa, get their way. They've been talking about ditching the US dollar for years, and now it's more serious than ever. But why are they doing this, and what would it mean for the US economy, the dollar, and the world at large? First, we have to understand why the US dollar is such a big deal.
We love what we do here, making money.
It accounts for 60% of global foreign exchange reserves, and nearly 50% of global trade invoices are denominated in dollars, even though the US dollar comprises only about 16% of world exports and imports. Also, the dollar is used in nearly 90% of global foreign exchange transactions. There are even a number of countries that use the dollar as their own default official currency. So could all of that change?
BRICS and what it means for the global world
More
order.
cooperation between their countries will ensure global security.
Okay, first, what are the BRICS? The founding countries are Brazil, Russia, India, and China. A few years later, South Africa joined.
In 2024, 4 new countries were admitted as full members, which include Egypt, Ethiopia, Iran, and the United Arab Emirates.
Combined, the BRICS members thumbs up about 30% of the world's land surface and 45% of the world population. And these countries make up over a third of global GDP. While these countries are at different stages of development, they're all trying to carve out more influence on the world stage. BRICS is now expanding its membership by invitation. And this is bad news for the US, if you ask me. The influence of BRICS is growing. And it's worth noting that not all countries have finalized their membership. Saudi Arabia is still considering its position. Argentina has declined to join due to its president wanting to align with the West, especially the US. By the way, check out the video I made about Argentina's dollarization and its relationship with the US. As of today, the US dollar is the currency that most countries use to buy things like oil, gold, and other goods. Now, this gives the US a massive advantage. It's like having a global monopoly on the currency used for trade. But the BRICS nations have been increasingly frustrated by the fact that the value of the dollar is ultimately controlled by a group of people in Washington, D.C. They see it as a form of economic imperialism. So they've started talking about alternatives.
The group is positioning itself as a counterweight to the West.
Can it reshape the financial world order?
It boils down to power and control. See, the US uses its control over the dollar to impose sanctions on countries that don't play by its rules. Countries like Iran, North Korea, and Venezuela have been heavily sanctioned, which makes it harder for them to do international business. In fact, $7 trillion worth of assets have been frozen due to US sanctions over the past decade. That's a huge amount of money, and BRICS is now saying, why should the US have the power to control global transactions and punish whoever it wants whenever it wants? In the past, the US government has used the SWIFT payment system, which is the backbone of global money transfers, to restrict countries it doesn't like from accessing global markets. But it's not just about sanctions. See, there's also the fact that countries in the BRICS bloc are seeing their economies rise while the US is struggling with debt. China and India, for example, have become huge global players, and they want to ensure that they have more say in the global financial system. Moving away from the US dollar would allow these countries to reduce their dependence on the US and have more economic freedom.
This has been in the works for 17 years.
A world order seems to be dominated by the US and its Western allies.
So what exactly are BRICS planning to do about it? Well, they've been discussing a BRICS currency for a few years, and while they haven't launched one yet, they're making moves in that direction. China has been promoting its digital yuan, a central bank digital currency that could eventually replace the US dollar in global trade. China has already struck deals with countries like Russia, Brazil, and Argentina to settle trade deals in yuan instead of dollars. In fact, in 2022, China conducted over $200 billion worth of trade in yuan, bypassing the dollar entirely. And then there's Russia, which has been stockpiling gold and other alternative assets
Russia has embarked on a gold buying spree
to hedge against the dollar. Russia's central bank has more than 2,300 tons of gold, making it the 5th largest gold holder in the world. Why? Well, gold is seen as a safe haven asset, and Russia is trying to protect itself from the volatility of the dollar. Another important development is the use of local currencies in BRICS trade. See, countries like India and Russia have been settling trade in their own currencies, which means less demand for the dollar.
We had the greatest economy in the history of our country, maybe in the history of any country. We did things that nobody could have done, and we're going to do them even better now. We're going to be drilling, as we say, drill, baby, drill.
Now, this is where things get interesting. Donald Trump recently weighed in on this issue. So in a public statement, he warned the BRICS nations about replacing the US dollar as the world's reserve currency. Okay, but Trump might be right about one thing. The dollar does give the US massive power, and the ability to print the world's reserve currency and influence global trade means that the US can keep borrowing, print money without much consequences, and impose economic pressure on other countries. I mean, it's a privilege that most other countries don't have but dream about. But Trump's comments highlight the fear that many in the US government have, and that's if the dollar loses its status as the global reserve currency, it could cause major economic problems. For one, the US would have a harder time financing its national debt, which currently stands at over $32 trillion. And if other countries stop using the dollar, the US might have to raise interest rates to attract buyers for its bonds, and that could lead to a recession.
The BRICS countries are far away from having anything that can rival the dollar's dominance. Russia, India, China, Brazil getting together and sharing currency, that's not going to happen.
If BRICS manages to replace the dollar with another currency or system, the global financial system would actually change dramatically. First, the US economy would feel it right away. See, right now the US can run huge trade deficits because the world needs dollars to trade. And if the dollar loses that dominance, the US might have to rely on other forms of currency like the euro or Chinese yuan, or even something more decentralized like Bitcoin. And the problem is that those currencies don't have the same global reach or influence as the dollar. So the US might find itself more dependent on foreign investment to keep the economy running smoothly. Countries like Russia and China could gain more influence in global trade. China, in particular, would benefit from a stronger yuan, which would allow it to make global trade agreements on its own terms. And then there's Russia, with its vast natural resources and huge energy exports. Well, it could also leverage this new system to bypass the dollar or reduce reliance on Western financial systems. But there's also a chance the world might not be ready for a new global currency. See, replacing the dollar with another currency like the yuan would require massive changes to the financial infrastructure. Just think about banks, markets, and businesses having to switch over to new systems, which could ultimately lead to confusion and instability. Not to mention, countries with less stable economies could actually struggle with this new system. Right now, it's unclear whether BRICS will succeed in its bid to dethrone the US dollar. I mean, it's not very likely, mostly because there is not really an obvious alternative here. But there is one thing for sure. The dollar's dominance is being challenged, and with the rise of digital currencies, local trade agreements, and alternative assets like gold, the US needs to pay attention because the world is changing and BRICS nations are pushing for a new global financial order. So, should the US be worried? Well, if the dollar does lose its global status, it could hurt the US economy in short term. But who knows? Eventually, it could lead to a more balanced, multipolar world in the long run. Let me know your comments below. What do you think? Is it a possibility? While you're at it, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss more videos about tech and economics.